Welcome back to P3. I talked with Steve Kaplan, one of the organizers of the Israeli Presidential Conference in Jerusalem this past year, about bridging the divide between different cultures and different religions in the Middle East. Stephen, you work for an organization that is trying to establish peace in this area. You guys have done incredible work, especially your example with Jordan. Tell me a little about what your next how you take your ideas and apply them into the future. Where are you going?
Well, the work that we do has several levels at it. As a university, obviously, there's the level of basic research where we fund scholars who choose subjects that might be the depiction of the other in textbooks. It might be looking at education on the West Bank. It could be something which some people might consider esoteric, like Egyptian film. We have someone looking at mourning programs in Tunisia, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, and studying the attitude towards women. So we have that sort of basic research.
All with the intention of trying to cultivate peace?
Well, with the idea, our attitude is not know your enemy, but know your neighbor. And the better we understand the culture of the surrounding societies, the better we're able to promote that. Although I should stress that at Truman, while we focus primarily on the Middle East, we also have scholars working on Latin America, Africa, and Asia as part of our mandate.
Can you give me a story? Because a lot of times I'm here in the Middle East, I'm hearing stories about people who just don't understand each other. And it's because of that misunderstanding that they get a sense of lack of trust, mistrust, doubt, and then anger and fear. Give me a story about of how you've seen that lack of trust be built up so their friendship can develop.
Well, if I can simply take this sort of thing, when we're working now with one of the universities in the West Bank to develop a program in which graduate students will do a seminar together in which they study the question of how do you write history and how are historical narratives constructed. And clearly in a situation like that, almost every aspect of the process of putting it together is a trust-building exercise. Who do we choose from our side to be involved? Who do we have from their side to be involved? Where is it located? Are they going to have to go through checkpoints, which in some ways may be humiliating, so that they arrive at a session totally embarrassed and angry before we've even begun to discuss things? Okay? How do we come to a point where we can agree to disagree? That, okay, I'm not going to accept your view, but I hear you. And a large part of it is encouraging people to listen.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because what you're asking about is at any story, any event that happens, there's two sides, and everyone wants to shape it according to their narrative, according to how they have encountered and experienced it. And you're talking about a collaborative approach of allowing that other person's story to be brought on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's in this with the sensitivities there are, and we have to be very aware, especially from the Israeli side, that in terms of our universities, in terms of our intellectual resources, in terms of the funds we have for these things, we're in a very powerful position. And that requires us to be enormously sensitive to the fact that very often for whether it's Bethlehem University, Al-Quds University, or any of the other universities that we may try to build contacts with, they don't have the resources, often the sensitivities. We have this wonderful blessing that we have academic freedom. You know, what we do is not monitored by somebody. And then, of course, you know, we have to be sensitive to the fact that sometimes it isn't something that we did and it isn't something that they did, but events that create an atmosphere which make it harder and harder to cooperate.
You are working at the kind of what I would it seemed like an academic level, and yet I know the translation down into real life, into the real homes of lives, is very real. Do you have hope that there is a future in the next 5-10 years of a peace agreement for a two-state solution in Israel?
Well, you have to have hope, because the alternative to the hope is the despair. Prime Minister Netanyahu last night talked and expressed his views on the issue. Of course, President Peres has devoted his life to the pursuit of peace, and it was perhaps personally most impressively perhaps listening to Tony Blair talking about the work that he's trying to do now. Obviously, you know, you are eternally optimistic without being naive. 5 years it can be a short amount of time, and yet, as I was saying to you, a few months ago we marked 30 years of the Egyptian-Israeli peace treaty at the Truman Institute. The Egyptian ambassador to Israel was there. The Israeli ambassador to Egypt was there. The American ambassador also came. Next week, we'll be marking 15 years of the Jordanian peace treaty with Israel. When I came to Israel, more than 30 years ago, if you had said we would have peace treaties that were stable with 2 Arab countries, people would have said you were dreaming.
Wow.
So,
well,
we hope that those are the, what I say to people is while organizing those conferences is hard, I hope that we have the headache of organizing lots more conferences marking the anniversaries of those peace treaties in the future.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More P3 coming up next.